The 2026 vibe coding market is starting to feel like NFTs did in 2021. You have people that are launching new vibe coding tools on a weekly basis. And honestly, it's starting to feel like crypto did before your cousin launched a meme coin. Every single week, there's a new tool that drops on the market. And at the same time, people are saying that this changes everything. Launch video after launch video after launch video. Every tool launching feels like they've cracked the solution and they've cracked the magical code. And even in the last 2 weeks, we've seen some huge companies release their own tools. Nowadays, you can go from idea to working product faster than ever before. Technical founders can now ship faster than ever before, and even non-technical people can also build things. And if you're a good designer, then getting access to a vibe coding tool can literally change everything. But the problem here is there are just so many tools on the market, and people who are entering this vibe coding thing for the first time, they have a really hard decision to make. The second you get remotely interested in this, you just start getting so many ads from different products. I think the vibe coding industry is in a very interesting place right now because you have so many big companies that are releasing products that compete with all these other ones. And you've even seen companies like Lovable, for example, pivot recently because they realized there's just so much competition now. And I'm willing to bet that the term vibe coding actually fizzles out at some point this year. And eventually we'll just be able to build anything on a platform that can support other things. It won't just be kind of cornered into this little vibe coding thing. So I thought it's time to make the final and only tier list for vibe coding tools in 2026. And I think this will be the last tier list you'll ever need to watch when it comes to vibe coding tools. So let's hop into our tier maker over here. By the way, I found this a great opportunity to use one of the tools that I'm highlighting in this video to build a tier maker in just a single prompt. So you could take your guesses down below which one you think I used. But at the end of the video, I'm going to reveal which tool that I use to make this tier maker in just one prompt. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and drag in all of the vibe coding tools that we're going to rank. And obviously, you might see a few logos that you're familiar with, but I'm willing to bet that some of these you've never seen before, and this might be the first time you're hearing about them. So let's just run through all the names first. Here we got Anything, Base44, Replit, Lovable, Codex by ChatGPT, Bolt.new, Floot, Orchids, Cursor, and V0 by Vercel. In order to rank these fairly, I'm going to be ranking them based off a few different things. So how much does it cost? Can you export the code? Are you locked into hosting on this tool? Are you stuck in their database? Can you bring your own API keys? Can you actually own what you build, or is it stuck on their platform? Can you one-click publish it to the internet, and how easy it is? How easy is it to do that? And then can it natively set up a database for you? So do you have to use an external database, or will it set up a database for you? And do you have the option of porting that database and claiming it yourself? And we're not basing any of these off of hype or clout. This will be a fully feature-based ranking, really based off of the features and certain things that I just mentioned. I can pretty much guarantee that some of you watching this video are going to disagree with me. So please leave a comment below telling me why, and I'll definitely read through it. Okay, so let's start off with Anything. I think a good test for this video that we could test with prompts before we get into some of the other things is just basically ask these tools, make me a tier list site. Okay, but in any case, besides the point, the pricing for Anything is not too bad. You have the cheapest plan starting at $20 a month, which is pretty standard nowadays. Most AI tools will have the cheapest plan at about 20 bucks. So I think pricing, you'll see in this video that pricing isn't going to be a huge issue with a lot of these tools, because for the most part, it is a pretty accessible type of product in the first place. And $20 a month, it costs the same as a ChatGPT subscription, and you can do a lot with these tools. So arguably, you can get a lot more out of a vibe coding tool than you can from a standard LLM subscription. So pricing is going to be pretty fair across all of these. Something that I do find pretty interesting here is that there's a little Figma icon. You can import Figma straight into Anything. I've seen a lot of other tools do this. Actually, a lot of tools that aren't even going to be mentioned in this video do offer this. I don't think it's a huge benefit necessarily, because now you can just generate HTML just as fast as you could generate Figma. And if you are a Figma designer, you can also just screenshot what you've built and then just give it to one of your vibe coding tools. And yeah, but it is nice to see, I guess, a little sort of Figma integration. What's interesting about Anything as well is that they do offer sort of more tasks beyond just vibe coding. So you can actually use Google image search, Google search. It seems like their agent can do a few other things as well, like validate emails, domain inspector, and they're adding their own tools as well. So that's pretty cool to see. They're not just sort of pigeonholing their users into one specific thing, and it kind of goes with their name as well. So if you can think it, you can do it, and that's anything is a pretty good brand name for them. It does seem a little bit like too much as a first time user. This is like a lot of stuff to kind of grasp. So basketball data, for example, it's a little bit random. Whereas like if you just ask most of these LLMs to find you, or sorry, coding agents to find you like this public data, it'll just do it. But it's cool to see that they're showing their users like what it's capable of. All right, so we have our tier list. Let's see if I could just create one first of all. I have to name it. So let's do like test, create and start ranking. Let's see what it gave us. Gave us like a basic tier list, and let's actually drop in the anything logo in here, see if it works. Oh wait, does it work? I have to click add an item like manually. Obviously this is like a super easy product anyway, but I think we're just gonna use this for fun. Add to pool, okay. Item added, test. Oh, well, it wasn't able to drop in the, it didn't drop in the image. I mean, that's interesting. So I literally drag and dropped, I selected the image, and then it didn't like put the actual image in it. It just put the name of it. Okay. Well, I mean, I'm not going to go too deep into how important this like tier maker is at all, because I just think it's a super simple task that all of these tools will be able to accomplish pretty easily. Something I do find interesting here in the settings is that you can add branding and icons to your mobile app. So you don't have to like ask the agent to do it. You can just like put them in right here. They do seem to have a multiplayer configuration, so I can invite collaborators, which is great. And then also this one-click publish, so you can publish this. But I am hitting a blocker here. It says this project does not have any web pages or backend functions. Why can't I still publish it? I mean, why does it have to have a backend function? I think that is either a mistake on their end, or like right here, if I can't just like publish it in a single click, I'm trying to build a quick prototype and I can't just publish this and send a link to somebody. That is definitely a point where I would churn for sure. I also don't like, where do I create a database? It's not like easy to create a database at all. Like there's just no, it says I need to create a database, but how come like they should have a button right here that literally just says like create database. You need to create a database before launching it. So I guess I would have to ask the agent to do that. Make a DB. Let's publish this. In any case, anything does lock you into their hosting. So if I do publish it with this one-click button here, it is going to lock me into hosting my site with them. And the issue with that is like, what if you build a product that kind of outgrows needing to use one of these tools? You're kind of stuck within their little ecosystem. And I think that is definitely a big issue here. You're also locked into using their database. So I asked it to make a DB like a few minutes, like literally like 2 minutes ago, and it hasn't done anything. It's just been stuck, to be honest. So I find anything looks pretty good and it seems great, but the functionalities aren't like incredible. And not only am I locked into their DB and I'm locked to hosting with their platform, but it seems like it's just having issues here in the first place, which this should not happen. I'm churning right away. Another factor is that you can't bring your own API keys. So I would have to pay for one of their subscriptions here. If I wanted to use their product, I need to buy their own credits. Whereas if I have my own Claude Code subscription or a ChatGPT subscription, I can't just like plug it into this and use it for free. I would basically need to buy their credits. I'm also not seeing any options here for exporting my code. Like I don't see a little GitHub button. I looked around and I basically can't find any place where I can set up like my code base. At least they do have mobile app support. I think that's great. And I think honestly, they have their heart in the right direction for sure. They want to be able to build something that is just easy for people to use, and it looks very user friendly. But at the end of the day, if I build an app that actually blows up using their platform, I don't want to be locked into using them. So I do think that it's very limiting. And at some point, they're going to hit a roadblock where users are just going to want to go somewhere else where they can actually take their code and do stuff with it. I guess theoretically, if you really wanted to, you can just like copy all your code, or you could probably just download this project, but it isn't like necessarily fun to do that. And most people aren't going to do that. They'll just like go somewhere else. But realistically, they should just be adding like a, connect your GitHub type feature. So anything Anything was able to build our prototype really fast, of course, and it looks pretty good, but it does fall short in a lot of important features that I'm looking for now as an experienced vibe coding user, and I think you are looking for as well. So, in my opinion, it does deserve, not a horrible, horrible score, but I do think, C is probably the best score for this. Maybe I'll change my mind by the end of this video, but I think C is pretty fair given that, they have a great looking product and I think their head is in the right place for sure. All right, now we're moving on to base 44. This one is like gonna be fun because you probably heard their ad a billion times, and Wix just bought them out like last month. So, I got their ad stuck in my head unfortunately, and it made me go insane. I've never been a big user of base 44, but I do know like they do a good job at spending a lot of money on ads. So there's definitely that. Build me a tier list site. All right. So while base 44 is building our tier list site, let's go through some of these specifics here. So base 44 does lock you into their hosting. So once you build something with them and you publish it, it's not going to like publish it to like Vercel for you or something. You're going to be hosting it on base 44. And I think this makes sense as well for Wix to acquire a product like that, because Wix is also like a website builder that, you host on Wix. And so I don't see them adding like an external hosting option anytime soon where you can just like, publish it to your own, your own host. Like, why can't I host it anywhere? I think that's a big question that a lot of users are asking these days. But yeah, so you can't host on your own with base 44. You have to host it through them. The backend is also locked into a sort of base 44 backend. So I basically can't create my own database on Supabase and then connect it with base 44. I have to really keep everything on their platform. I think this is great for like beginners. And if you're like a first time vibe coder, you want an experience that feels seamless. But the issue with that is a lot of people are becoming more educated when it comes to vibe coding, and people are very quick learners. Like, we're in the age where people can just pick up new skills really fast. And I think after like a week or two of tinkering with kind of products like this, like anything in base 44, you realize like, I want to be able to customize this a lot more. And so I just feel like people will outgrow that like native database feature like really quickly, and they'll just churn and go find another product pretty fast. Base 44 also like forces you to use like their native payment solution. So if I want to use anything other than like Stripe or within base 44, then basically you got to be locked into like their payment solution. So I can't just like modify it. And I also can't bring my own keys. So if I want to use my own LLM subscriptions, I can't use it with base 44. So that's also kind of unfortunate. Base 44's pricing seems to be pretty fair as well. I mean, their cheapest plan starts at $25 a month. And then if you're at a yearly, it starts at $20 a month. And they also have a free plan, which obviously will only get you like basically past your first project. All these tools basically offer a free plan that you can build your first project with, and then you start having to buy credits. One thing I do find really interesting with their pricing though is that on the starter plan, which is only $25 a month, you get unlimited apps with this. So that is pretty interesting. And then obviously you get unlimited for all the other plans as well. But a lot of other products would basically have like a limitation to the amount of projects you can create. And so, this is definitely pretty interesting. All right, so this is a pretty fair tier list here. I mean, nothing too crazy here, but I could just go ahead and click these tiers, and it created some like pre-baked ones for us here. So best RPGs of all time, Marvel movies ranked, top anime of 2024. And then I guess we can go ahead and create our own. So I think all of these are nailing the nail on the head with this tier list build. And I'm pretty impressed so far with base 44s, to be quite honest. Base 44 has you like locked into like their native dashboard. So like your analytics, connecting your domain, all that kind of stuff is going to be like pretty much locked in on their thing. And if you want to look at your data as well, so all of this is like locked into their native database, which is great for like a beginner. And I don't think there's like an issue with doing that. I just think that if you are an experienced builder, you're looking for a tool that you can bring your own database and your own tools to. And that's why this won't have like necessarily a high score. One thing I do see here though is that you can connect your GitHub. So that's great. and I could basically, take my code and bring it elsewhere if I really wanted to. The only thing with that though is that even if I wanted to host it somewhere else, I will have to completely reconfigure the whole database aspect because the current database is running on base 44. And if I wanted to take my code and bring it elsewhere, I would have to basically start the back end from scratch. I'm also able to publish it in a single click. So if I click publish, it starts publishing and it publishes it really fast. So that's great compared to anything where I wasn't even able to publish it right away. That is definitely a good sign. And if I had an idea today and I went for base 44 and it's like the first time I'm ever using a vibe coding tool, and I think I'd be pretty happy, like overall pretty impressed with this experience for sure. I think some of you are going to argue with me on this one, putting base 44 so high, especially like the experienced vibe coders, because base 44 does get quite a lot of flack. But I do want to see this from everybody's perspective. I don't want to see it from just a experienced vibe coder's perspective. I want to see it kind of from, somebody who's using a vibe coding tool for the first time. And I do think base 44 does deserve to be like B or C tier, right? I don't think it's anywhere above that. And I think B is like very generous. So I'll just leave it at that. But I would love to hear your comments down below because I know a lot of people that do not like base 44. And so there you go. All right, so the next up is, I just wrote tier. Whoops, hold on. Okay, well, let's see. I said build me a tier, and let's see what Replit does with that piece of information. Okay, so now it's asking us, do we want it to be a tier list app? Yeah, tier list app. Okay. Replit, funny enough, was one of the first vibe coding tools I ever tried out like 6 or 7 months ago. And so this will be pretty interesting to see how they've improved since then, because honestly, I stopped using them pretty fast and I moved to other solutions out there. But they tend to be a pretty good tool for a beginner. So the pricing, again, pretty standard. They actually end up being one of the cheaper alternatives compared to the other ones, but only by a few dollars. So I don't think it adds much to this tier list, but they do happen to be one of the cheaper alternatives out there where the starting plan is at $20. So what I would say with Replit is that, first of all, you're locked into their database. So very similarly to base 44 and anything AI, you're locked into their database. So with Replit, you can bring your own keys to build a product that has AI in it, but it's not going to use your AI keys for like the actual building part. It's just going to use your own keys inside of like an app that you build, alternatively, there are some others out there that you can just bring your keys to the platform and it'll use to actually code your product. So this is Replit's tier maker. So far, this is like by far the ugliest looking one, to be honest. I'm sure this is functional though, so I'm not gonna spend too much time on the tier maker stuff, but it also has a couple of like preset ones here. So we're in like this, like I guess this like video game one where I could do like, and it's not even like working. I can't even like drag them on. Oh, well, decides to work sometimes. Oh, and I can't even drag it. Oh, I guess I have to drag it to like the middle. For some reason, when I drag it here, it doesn't work, but I have to, like, it works only when I drag it in the middle. Okay, so obviously this is functional because it's such an easy task. But yeah, Replit has quite a lot of tools to use, but at the end of the day, you are locked into their kind of back-end tool set, right? So if I want to, use auth, or if I want to do a security scan, or if I want to use any of these skills, I'm basically locked into their platform. However, you're also able to connect your GitHub account to Replit. What I find annoying is that like you have to do it through the settings. You can't just like, there's not like a little GitHub button here that you can just click. And that kind of annoys me because like, I feel like they're trying to hide that from their users because they want their users to stick onto their platform so bad that they don't want people to just like take the code and like bounce, which whatever. I'm not going to comment on any of that. I think Replit overall is still a great product, and you could build a lot of things with Replit, not just like websites and apps. You can do like a lot of mobile stuff. You can build Python stuff. You can do a lot more than just like building websites. Whereas Base 44 is sort of just like a website builder. Like, yes, they say you can build apps, but like honestly, I promise, like try and build an actual like complex application with Base 44. You're just not gonna be able to. Whereas like Replit, for example, will do a better job at building you like a more complex application. Okay, so I am going to put Replit over on at the B tier. And unfortunately, now that I think about it, I think base 44 is dropping back down to C, to be honest with you, just because for that, like just for that fact that I just thought of where it's like Replit can actually sometimes build more complex things, whereas base 44 is just good at building like dashboards and like some front end stuff and like websites. And it really makes sense for Wix to like acquire a product like them, to be honest, because it's not like a super complicated like dev tool. Whereas like Replit, there are like a few more nooks and crannies that you can kind of build and do cool like more cool things with it. All right, so next up is Lovable. All right, so while the tier list builds, let me just walk you through some of the things that we're ranking here. So Lovable's pricing is pretty fair. Nothing to complain about here. They do operate off a credit system, which I think it should be more based off of like projects because like that's how most people think, right? And if Lovable is really promoting themselves as a like super beginner friendly tool, then it should be more like, hey, 25 bucks a month gets you 3 projects. Credit systems are really annoying. And personally, I also tested out Lovable quite a while ago when I first started this vibe coding journey. And I ran out of credits pretty fast, and I found myself having to, I was stuck within Lovable and I had to buy a lot of credits. But this, however, does mean that you are stuck to hosting with Lovable. So if you wanted to host it straight somewhere else, you can't. And that is why a lot of these tools that like we're starting off with this tier list are going to get lower scores, is that you're so locked in to hosting with them. It's like, what if I build like a viral app or something? And I have to pay Lovable forever, and Lovable can then charge me whatever they want. If my app blows up and I start making a lot of money off it, they can come back to me and be like, hey, give us $20,000 a month for your hosting if I have like millions of users, which is like they shouldn't be controlling the usage. I should have full control over my infrastructure and manage it myself. Another thing with Lovable is that it's not great at building like iOS native apps. So you can't really build like proper mobile apps with it. And I haven't personally been able to build like any more like complex softwares with it. Mainly been like basic CRUD applications. If you're not sure what CRUD means, CRUD basically is an acronym for create, read, update, delete, which a lot of these vibe coding tools, that's basically what they are. They make simple applications that allow you to create information, read information, update information, and delete information. So basically what that means is like nothing new, nothing sort of like actually revolutionary, just like a basic application that is visual and you can delete information, create information, update information, and delete it, basically. Yeah. Okay, so nothing too crazy here with the tier list. I mean, I just dragged it in. Why isn't it working? Okay, so that doesn't even work. Test. I'm also not able to drag anything in here. So, okay. That's unfortunate. And wait, I just tried dragging it to another level and it didn't work. It's just sort of gone. Um, yeah, so actually Lovable failed at making a basic tier list in one prompt, which is like pretty bad. If base 44 is doing a better job than Lovable, then I think something's wrong. One thing I will say about Lovable though is I do like their UI. I mean, it's a very, all pretty standard across all of the other tools out there, but I do think they did it like a pretty solid job over here. And this has actually changed quite a bit since I used it. So this is kind of pretty refreshing to see that they have made some updates. You're also able to share this project and work with collaborators. I think this is also pretty standard now with a lot of these other tools. And being able to connect your GitHub as well is pretty great. And let's see here. Can I publish this in one click too? Yeah, I could publish it. I think like for these bigger ones like Lovable and Replit, like being able to publish it just like that, it makes sense. I feel like that's what they got to do. And then before you publish here, it asks you about your icon and your title. I don't know why don't they just say like favicon here? Like it's not necessarily an icon, it's a favicon. But they're really making this for like noobs. So social image and a description. Okay, like this is not bad. A little preview here with what the SCRP result looks like. That is very interesting. I will say. However, at the end of the day, I do think Lovable is going to be in the C tier. And although I think, it's a great company and they were one of the first to go to market with this kind of product, I just think that's the same level that I'm putting some of these on here because you're locked in. They have these very like these methods of really locking you into their product. And one thing about Lovable as well is that they have something called Lovable Cloud, which before, like actually a couple months ago, you used to be able to, connect your own Supabase account with Lovable. And now it's like you're completely locked into Lovable Cloud. So beforehand, I would have maybe given Lovable a B here, but since they went to Lovable Cloud, they lock in all their users. And if you want to change databases, you have to be like somewhat knowledgeable when it comes to that in order to change the endpoints for your Supabase. And it's funny because Lovable Cloud actually runs on Supabase, but if you wanted to like claim it, there's not like a button where you could just like claim the database. You're kind of like locked into Lovable Cloud, and that's just because they want to lock you in to paying for their service. They want you to build a viral app so that when it blows up, they can just charge you a bunch of money, and we don't like that. So I think that's why they're going to get a C. And on top of that, Lovable doesn't like make mobile apps, so I think that's kind of why maybe Replit deserves a B. But I almost think like these three could be D tier, but I feel like we're not going to go D and F tier in this video because like at the end of the day, these are all like great revolutionary products. Like if I were to try any of these products like 2 or 3 years ago, and heck, even like 1 year ago, I was impressed by all of these. So, it just goes to show how far this industry has come and where the standards have gone with how these products should operate. But that's why I don't think we're going to be giving any D's or F's this video. But yeah, the next tool we're testing out is Codex. Now, Codex is by ChatGPT, so there's very high standards here. But I will say off the bat that Codex is a super powerful tool. I think Codex must be one of the best, like we could say quote unquote vibe coding tools, but I see it more as like an AI IDE because it's not like you have all these features like one-click publish and all these other things. Is really more focused on writing code, and then you can figure out how to connect your database and publish the code to the internet on your own. So what I will say from a developer perspective, and a lot of the engineers and developers that I know, they definitely have pretty good things to say about Codex. And I do too. I mean, I've been using Codex quite a bit recently, and it's a very powerful tool. The only things I will say, and I don't think we need to make a tier list with Codex because we can just assume that it's going to knock it out of the park. The only thing I will say about Codex, though, is like obviously you're locked into using ChatGPT. So if I have any other LLM models that I want to test on Codex, it is not very programmable in the sense where I can just like plug in another one and try other things. You're locked into ChatGPT's model, but fortunately, GPT 5.4 is like an incredibly powerful coding model. And in my opinion, right now, at least as the time of making this video, I think it's one of the most powerful coding LLMs like on the market. And what I do find interesting as well is like you can open this dropdown here and open your code in all of like these other tools here. So it's a very interesting tool, and I recommend, like, I even find using Codex is like just better in general than using ChatGPT itself. This was a really easy one to rank, and I'm putting Codex at A. When I put Codex at A, it almost feels like, why are these ones so close to it? So I almost want to put Replit at like C tier, but like, dude, to be honest with you, I think we're going to have to make some more changes to this. I think base 44 is dropping here. We're going to put anything here. Okay, I think this makes a little bit more sense. I almost feel like Replit might have to be in the C tier though. Okay, let's leave it at B tier for now. But the reason why Codex is not getting an S tier is for 2 reasons. Like A, I think it's one of the best on the market, and I will never back down from saying that. However, from a beginner standpoint, that is where it doesn't sort of reach S tier, right? If I want to publish it to one click to any like hosting provider, it is complicated. And as like a first time user perspective, having to like send my code and push it to a GitHub repo, take that GitHub repo, go to, like Supabase and Vercel and deploy it and, connect to Supabase and all that. I think it is a little bit complicated for like a first time user. So that's like some of the main reasons. But overall, like if there could be an A+ tier or like an A.5 tier, I would totally put Codex there. But, okay, now so on to Bolt.new. Bolt.new is one of those tools that absolutely blew up like a couple of months ago. I'd say probably about like 6 months ago. But then it's like they really had this big like, burst, and then Like, I don't know anybody who's talking about Bolt anymore, using Bolt. I think they're sort of, they were really quick to market and they just sort of weren't able to keep up with the crazy attention market of vibe coding in general. And so let's dive into some of their features here. I will be pretty fair, just knowing that Bolt was like pretty early to market. So let's just check it out. One thing I will say about Bolt though, off rip, is that they have this version which is bolt.new, which you're kind of forced to buy these like credits here, which I don't need to get into the pricing structure at this point because it's pretty standard across all of them. But they also created this thing called bolt.diy, which I believe is one of their open source versions of what bolt.new is. And with this, you can basically plug in your own API from any LLM you want, and then you can probably access a very similar tool. And my personal opinion on why they did this is because they realized like people stopped using bolt.new and they were kind of like dying slowly as a product. And so like, let's make this open source and allow people to kind of use their own LLM. Literally, this is what it says here: prompt, run, edit, deploy full stack web applications using any LLM you want. So this is like a great, it was a great segue for them to just sort of do this. And I'm sure a lot of people got pretty good use of this. I mean, it has 20,000 stars on GitHub. So that's pretty interesting. And then you can see there's a lot of people who are forking this and trying to build on top of it. So that's chill. One thing that's good about Bolt is that you're not locked into necessarily using their database. So yes, I can click on database here, but you're also able to connect it to an existing database. So you can connect a Supabase project to manage your data, set up authentication, and do all that stuff. So that's pretty good. I'm not locked into something like Lovable Cloud, which kind of locks me in, whereas Bolt.new, I can create a Supabase account and connect it. And at least that's the case with Supabase, but it doesn't mean you have access to like all these other databases. So I still think that's a great feature, by the way, but definitely going to keep that in mind. Also, you can connect your GitHub account and you can download all the code. So that's also pretty standard. Bolt doesn't like lock you into like one type of agent as well. You can use any of the Claude agents that exist. And it seems like they have like Codex coming soon as well. So that's pretty solid. They have their own, like their V1 agent, which is legacy, which I wouldn't recommend anyone using. Like at this point, you should just use any of the big LLMs. But I mean, that's pretty solid. So it's not like they're really forcing you to use like a specific type of agent, kind of like what Replit does. You can import from Figma as well, which is like pretty standard. They have these connectors. Let's see what we have here. Custom MCP server, Miro, basic integrations here. I wouldn't say anything like too crazy. Nothing that like blows my mind, to be honest. You can like manage your users here for your app as well. And I'm assuming once you connect your Supabase, it makes it super easy. So these are definitely things that are going to make the project a lot more respected, I guess, when it comes to my tier list. I think this is great. Even though nobody uses Bolt.new, I wanted to include them in this tier list because it's just one of those products that came at a pretty good time, and I think they deserve to be on this list based off of like some of the features that I'm seeing. They deserve it. I will say though, it is taking quite a long time just to build this basic tier list. Like I've been sitting here for a couple of minutes now, and it took a long time just to plan it, which I don't necessarily mind if it's planning it out and it really executes it fast, but it should not have taken like a couple of minutes just to plan this. It should have been done by now. I guess also, since I'm on the free plan, I'm using Sonnet, which is not like a super strong model compared to like Opus 4.6. So I'm not going to complain here. I'm on the free plan. I'm not going to complain. Their UI is also not too bad. Like it says, okay, so this just looks like a working tier list. Should we test it out? I mean, fine. Let's test it out for the video. Add item. Oh, wow. So here I'm not even able to drag and drop an image. I have to put an image URL, which is like, if I'm like a non-technical person for the first time, I'm just like, bro, what? How do I create an image URL? Like, I'm not able to drag and drop an image. So that's unfortunate. Let's see if I publish this. It discovers some security issues, which is like pretty standard. I think Lovable does that as well. This is not bad of like a security audit. But at the same time as well, like I just asked it to build a tier list. Like, why is it giving me all these security issues when all I asked for was like a basic tier list? Like seems like it's trying to do a little bit too much. It's just like doing the most, I think. But let's just click publish and see what we get here. Am I like locked in to publish with them? Like, am I able to export this somewhere else? A common theme here that I'm seeing across all of these products is that I have to host it with them unless I take the code and go host it elsewhere, which is like, why can't one of these tools just like allow me to like host it straight on like a provider that I'm familiar with? Like, why can't I just connect my Vercel? Or why can't I just connect, a hostinger, for example? Like, I should be able to just connect any hosting provider I want to the platform and be able to host it. Like, all right, I'm not going to spend too much time. I do know that Bolt can build some like more complex applications than like just a website, but obviously not a lot of people are using them these days. And just based off of this tier list as well, I wasn't very happy with it. Um, I shouldn't be too picky with the tier list, but like, come on, an image URL, it's a tier list, dude. I should be drag and dropping images on here, like, or at least I should be able to like click and like select an image from my Finder. So I'm putting it in C tier. I feel like I know I said I was going to be generous, but I do think that's generous. Like for the time of the market we are in right now, where literally like Google is launching their own like vibe coding tool. And I think we're just going to see at some point, every tool is going to be a vibe coding tool. Like that is where the market is going right now. And a lot of these tools have no choice but to like pivot into something else. And at some point, it's just like, you have Claude Code, you have all these other things that are coming out in the market. And there's a reason why Claude Code isn't even on this list, is because it's like, I wouldn't even consider Claude Code like necessarily like a vibe coding tool, even though it is. It's just sort of one of those things where I wouldn't even put it on the market because it's not like a super highly like consumer product, right? Like it's not something that somebody is going to see, and like a first time vibe coder is not trying Claude Code for the first time straight in CLI. This tier list was really like the consumer vibe coding tools, and even Codex was hard to get in here as like a consumer tool, but since it is ChatGPT, it is the most used LLM. I feel like it just makes sense because you have a lot of like quote unquote normies that are downloading Codex and trying it out for themselves. So, I think it's just fair to put Codex in there. It is confusing though, because like AI IDE and vibe coding tool, like, do they mean the same thing? Actually, you know what? I don't even know myself. So I would like to hear from you. If you think that AI IDE and vibe coding shouldn't be put in like the same sentence, then let me know. But to me, as like somebody who doesn't have a software engineering background, I feel like it just means the same thing. If it's an AI ID versus a vibe coding tool, it's like whatever. That's the way I see it. I feel like I probably should have added these others like to the list as well, like anti-gravity and windsurf. But at the end of the day, like I just find like these are more IDE based, and like even I've tried anti-gravity before, and it just felt a lot more like maybe it was like a Codex, but like a little bit more complicated, right? Whereas these other ones are really more like consumer friendly products. But windsurf definitely deserves to like windsurf and anti-gravity definitely deserve to like sort of be on this like A tier level. But I don't even need to go through these, to be honest, because most people who are like a vibe coder persona, they're not going to be using these tools at all. Like you'll be using anti-gravity and windsurf like way down the line, or like never, because Codex is just basically does the job. And you don't really need to touch these other ones. All right, let's move on to the next one. All right, so now it's time to review Floot. I mean, from a first glance, like I remember when they got funded by Y Combinator, and my reaction was just like, oh, another vibe coding website builder tool thingy, mabobber, whatever you want to call it. We'll just check this out. I've actually never tried Floot before. I've only kind of like glanced over their product, so I will be interested to see some of the things. But one thing I do like want to say off rip is that I believe they're more like for websites. Like I feel like people would use a product like Floot more for like just building like websites, whereas every vibe coder that started off as like a beautiful website builder kind of shifted into like, we also build apps. We don't just do websites, but we also do apps. Like that was kind of like the trend, because as a user, like how many websites do you need? Like I feel like you're going to stop at some point. It's not like you're going to create a website every day, right? Whereas apps, I feel like you have so many more ideas, and people's imagination can go a lot deeper than just like a website. App is basically just like a fancy term for like a more complicated website, pretty much. So websites, apps, but like Floot really seems more like a website builder more than anything. But let's just like dive a little bit deeper into their features so that you can draw your changes. So people who are very like like to explain things a lot easier. Whereas sometimes I have found with like vibe coding tools, when you're trying to like textually explain something, it can get a little bit annoying. Versus just being able to like draw it over, or I feel like that is like a very chill but like super simple feature. Obviously, like I don't think I'm gonna break my head over this. This is like basic jargon, to be honest. They do advertise one-click hosting, so basically you can host with them, but that means you're locked in. Hey, come build on our tool. We're gonna lock you in. Like that's like the trend that I'm seeing here. All right, this time we're gonna ask Floot to like make it fancy. So we're gonna say build me a tier list site, make it fancy, and let's see what it's doing here. One thing I find funny as well is like they have like their customer service agent at the bottom right here, which is like dog. Like this makes it feel like a much cheaper product than all the other ones when you just like plop your little customer service agent in the bottom right. This makes it feel like a completely different product than the other ones, and you get that feeling that is a bit of like a cheaper product when you're using it, like just from like a UI standpoint. But that's chill. Like I don't like to judge a book by its cover in any case. So what's interesting here is they have these like tabs that are broken down into different things. So like you could upload your own files that you can use within your own website. Some data here. So if you want to connect like a database, what can I connect here? I guess this is just like their native database. So obviously Floot makes you locked into their database as well. So this seems like another one of those like very beginner friendly tools. You can view your analytics and all that kind of stuff. Can I like expand this? I can't. Like, okay. Am I stuck to using this whole tab in like a small mode? Okay, that's a bit weird. Like, I wish I could like expand this and view it bigger. One thing I will say though, what I will say, and I will give this to Floot, that a lot of the other website AI website builders don't have is like an SEO focus. And I found with my experience like building sites like quite a while back with some of these other tools is that like you can't just use the tool and like all the SEO will be like baked in. You kind of have to like prompt the agent and be like, hey, change my meta title, change my meta description, add this preview image to my site, do this, add robots, text and sitemaps. Whereas this is pretty solid like little feature, which I don't think is necessarily too complicated or groundbreaking, but it is one of those things that is cool to have here for sure. And obviously it wants you to upgrade once you want to try one of these SEO features. Let's just look at their pricing here quickly as well. Production grade, 24/7 hosting, custom domains, SEO optimizations. Like I think the SEO is actually like a pretty interesting thing, but to be honest with you though, like SEO is a lot more complicated and important than just like a site name, a description, and all that. So I feel like from an SEO perspective, it's like very, very basic. Okay, but now how do I view the app it made us? Like where's like the view, where's like the preview mode? Wait, like I'm like stuck in the data. Like how do I where do I like preview my site? This is interesting here. It says like you could download your code. So I guess there's no way for us to connect like a GitHub account and just get the code. I have to like download it and then like obviously it's not complicated, right? You can just download the code and then go straight to GitHub and create a repo, but it's still not ideal. Like I want to be able to just like push code and create commits from my tool. Like I don't want to have to download the code and do any of this like extra stuff. Okay, but dude, I'm being serious. Like where's my site? Like how come there's no like preview tab? Dude, I had to literally click. I had to go back to the dashboard just to get to the preview. I think the UI UX here needs a lot of work with Floot for sure. They do seem to offer mobile apps as well, but like I'm not feeling very confident in their ability to do that, to be honest. But they do seem to have an instant mobile app preview, which is kind of like Rourke, which is that like iOS native vibe coding tool. The reason why Rourke isn't on this list, by the way, is because it's like literally just focused on mobile apps, which like I feel like, if you want to see me do a mobile app vibe coding tier list, like let me know. But I just feel like it wasn't very relevant. But I think Rourke is also somewhat of a decent tool, but then Swift just added like an AI integration, like literally Apple. Going back to what I was saying before, Apple literally just integrated like an AI feature on Swift like natively, so you can use AI to basically code using Swift. And so I just feel like a lot of these like very niche vibe coding tools, it's like if you're just focused on iOS apps, you're just gonna, get taken out. You kind of have to focus on more important things that are more like broad for the market, because the vibe coding market is a very wide market. There's a lot of different use cases and there's a lot of people that are entering it. So every product is going to get some attention. And there's a reason why even something like Floot, for example, was able to get funded by Y Combinator, and they probably have users. Like, I'm willing to bet that they are still making money. But also for a tier list site, it has been like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It's been more than 5 minutes, dude. Like, this is taking way too long. I'm not happy with how long Floot is taking. I almost want to move on to the next one. Like, this video is just getting pretty long right now. All right, well, that only took like 8 minutes. Come on, man. What is this? It's not even done. It's not even finished. I'm not bullish on Floot at all. Start creating. I just clicked on start creating and it already gave me an error. Like, this is the most basic app you can make. Come on, dude. Floot really locks you in and they're not working at all. Like, and why does it take so low just to load up like my featured lists? What is this? At least it works. At least the preset ones work. So if I want to create my own, it doesn't seem like it works, but at least the presets work. Whatever. Okay, fine. Floot is definitely going D tier. Unfortunately, it has to be on the same level as Base 44, even though like Base 44 feels like miles better than Floot, which makes maybe I should put Base 44 back in the C tier, but whatever, man. I'm going to give Floot a D for this. All right, so for the final test, we're ranking Orchids. Now, you've probably seen, if you've been watching my channel, I've used Orchids in quite a few of my other videos. So for the final one, we're ranking Orchids. Now, you've probably seen me use Orchids in previous videos on this channel, and that's just because I've actually discovered Orchids through trial and error. I was going through a bunch of the different tools on the market, and then I landed on Orchids because they just solved a lot of the problems that I needed. And so without further ado, I'm going to jump into some of their features, but I will be reviewing this as honest as possible, and let's just jump in. I know it might seem kind of biased that I'm reviewing Orchids because I've been using it recently. However, there are some things about it that are very interesting and very unique compared to the rest of the market. So let's just jump into these. One thing I will say about Orchids is that they have their own custom agent that plugs into the three most famous LLM models, and that is Claude, GPT, and Gemini. And really, you can go on in your settings and basically toggle which ones you want to use and which ones you don't want to use. And I've been using Orchids for free recently because I connected my ChatGPT subscription. So this is one thing and one feature that a lot of the, like basically most of the rest of the market does not have, which you can connect your own subscription and basically bring your own key. And you do not need to pay for credits. Like literally, you can use a vibe coding tool for free if you bring your own subscription, which is really cool. Like all you have to do is go to the subscriptions tab in the settings and you can connect your account and you can literally log in with your ChatGPT subscription and then boom, you're done. Like you're using Orchids for free at that point, free vibe coding. And you can do the same with the others as well. Same thing with the API key. So if you're building a product that uses AI, you can connect and configure your own API key without being forced to, pay for hosting credits that basically just is reselling AI usage to your application users. You can just like use it. You can plug in your own API key and you can basically build your own apps with the LLM model of your choice. And by the way, I think I have to confess, I did use Orchids to make the tier maker for this video. It is my favorite tool, so I did decide to use it. And it wasn't because it made the best looking tier maker or it made, it just made a functional one in a single prompt. So that's obviously, pretty standard. But I wanted to choose one that I actually am using myself. And I think I can give the best feedback and advice to users out there because I use Orchids on a day-to-day basis. Orchids also allows you to basically build anything. So you can build anything from a Slack bot, a Python automation, literally anything you can think of, Orchids can pretty much build it. You can build custom CLI interfaces, you can build mobile apps, desktop apps, obviously. And it also has held up pretty well with creating like basic mobile games and like some 3D based games. Like I was able to recreate like Crossy Road, Angry Birds, and some other pretty easy like titles using Orchids as well. So that's pretty chill. One thing I will say that's very interesting about Orchids is that you can create your own database and it doesn't lock you into neither their own native database or any other database. So you're not locked into using something that is built on top of Supabase. You can choose amongst any database you want, and you can even type in your own. So if there's like another database provider out there that you want to use that is not on this list, you can use them. And I find that really awesome. So if you're an experienced developer and you're used to building with some of these other databases, you're not locked into going a specific route. Orchids literally allows you to decide which database you want to work with. And I think that is amazing. Being able to have that kind of flexibility as a builder is really important. And when you're trying to look for a good tool, especially if you're somewhat experienced with building products, having that flexibility is super, super important. And not to mention, once your database is created or connected via Supabase, not only can you view it within Orchids, but you can also claim your database. So if it is created with Supabase on Orchids, you can literally one-click claim it here, and it's going to bring you to Supabase, prompting you to claim your database. And not only that, if you are not happy with Supabase, you can just literally click here, click switch, and switch to a new database or switch between database to database. And I think that's like insane, because like there's no tools on the market where you can just like literally click through different databases that you want to use, connect an an existing database. So I think that is like a very powerful feature that is definitely like overlooked and super underrated. You're also able to obviously push straight to GitHub, and you can also generate commit messages. So it'll automatically basically generate what your changes were and push it to your GitHub. And the commits also show up as yourself. So the contributions, you'll get the contributions from your personal GitHub account, whereas with other vibe coding tools, it'll just say like Lovable agent has pushed the code and you don't really get the contribution. So that's pretty interesting. Another huge bonus for me is that you can one-click deploy to Vercel. So if you click the deploy button here, it'll literally deploy your site straight to Vercel, which if you're not familiar with Vercel, it's basically one of the most like famous front-end hosting providers on the market. And keep in mind, I can deploy to Vercel in a single click without even needing a Vercel account. So I basically just click one deploy button, it deploys it straight to Vercel. I can go to my app. I could even switch it to a custom domain if I want to without needing a Vercel account. And not only that, whenever I'm ready, I can connect my own Vercel account as well. So I can go and host it straight to Vercel, or I could just take my code and I can go host it wherever I want. I'm not just locked into this one path, which I find a lot of the tools on the market, they kind of like push you into like one specific path, and you're not able to decide what you want. Whereas Orchids, literally, it's called a flower for a reason, because it's literally like just blooms and you can basically choose what path you want. The same goes for payments. So if I want to integrate a payments provider like Stripe, I can do so. And they also offer other very famous payment solutions such as Polar, Lemon Squeezy, and Paddle. And if there are these third-party solutions that I want to integrate, I could just type it in and the Orchids agent is going to figure out how to integrate it. So unlimited flexibility here, I think, is very, very powerful, and I can connect whatever database I want. I can one-click publish to Vercel. I can choose what kind of payment provider I want to use, and I just think that is like very powerful. And not only that, I can access the terminal in here as well. I've been able to set up my own OpenClaw using Orchids as well, and I was able to host my OpenClaw for free. So if you want to check out that video, I'll also have a link to it down below. All right, so it's time to decide where Orchids goes on the list. And I'm going to be putting it on S tier. And the reason behind that is for a couple of reasons. Not only can I decide which LLM I want to use, I can connect my own and use it for free. I can decide on which database I want to use. I can decide on which payments provider I want to use. I can publish it in a single click anywhere on the internet, including Vercel in a single click, which is super popular. And I don't even need a Vercel account. And I can build very powerful applications, from mobile apps to scripts to anything I want. And so I think from a beginner perspective, not only does Orchids take the cake, but even from an experienced developer perspective that understands the market very well and wants to use different tools, I just think Orchids is good for both beginners and for experienced users. And so that is why I think Orchids deserves S tier in this case. Okay, so next in line is Cursor, and I think Cursor is also going to get a pretty high score. Obviously, you've definitely heard of Cursor. It is the probably the high. Well, first of all, it's the highest valued vibe coding tool, which is like just vibe coding, not like Codex, for example. So Cursor is obviously going to be up there. They have a great team. And in general, they're just one of those tools that's very popular and respected amongst beginners and professionals. So this is going to also be a pretty easy one to score. One thing though is you do need the desktop app if you want to try this out for free. If you want to use one of their cloud agents, you need to upgrade, which is I find interesting. I feel like as a first time user, I should just get a few free credits to try out my product. Like, why don't they just give me free ones? It's a bit weird. They do have like a good amount of tools. Like, I wonder why like Webflow is there. That's like pretty interesting. Why would you want to connect like another website builder to a vibe coding tool? That's pretty interesting. But other than that, there are a good amount of other tools that you can plug in. All right, so I have Cursor pulled up here, and you do have to download the native application for your device, which can get annoying sometimes. Like, not everybody wants to download an app. And so Cursor kind of stands out as a more experienced user tool. It is definitely sort of like a more prosumer tool for sure, because you know it's not one of those things where you're just going to get an ad for it on like an Instagram ad like you will like Lovable or Base 44 and just try it out the box. You'll pretty much have to like educate yourself a little bit more on the product and kind of dig deeper. And I think Cursor kind of wants to be that product. They're not trying to be like a Lovable. They're not trying to be one of these like more spammy type vibe coding tools that's just sort of like in your face. They're just sort of like there. And Cursor's always been like that with their marketing. And I think Cursor is a great product overall. So and I feel like for those of you watching this video, it's like you knew it came to this part of the video where we are ranking Cursor, and Cursor is just a great product. So it's almost like the video is already over, but let's just go ahead and complete this like Cursor test. All right, so make me a tier list site. This is also going to not score as high as I wish it would, because why does Cursor want to access my Apple Music and video activity and my media library? Hey, come on now. No, I wouldn't. I don't want that, Cursor. No. And I almost shouldn't even be running this test with Cursor, because it's one of those things where like you can't publish it in a single click. You can't manage a database. It's not sort of like an all-in-one solution. So for beginners, it's like super like not really, it's not really useful. And to be honest with you, when I was a beginner at vibe coding just like 7 months ago, I tried Cursor and I kind of hopped to something that was a lot easier at the time, because I just found Cursor to be a little bit too advanced for me as like a beginner. So I am going to take that into consideration when I rank them. That's for sure. All right, so here's the tier list that Cursor made us. Obviously, this is running locally, so I wasn't able to just publish this in a single click. I'm able to run the code locally, however. And so let's just see if this works. I mean, yeah, it works for obvious reasons. I wasn't expecting it not to work from Cursor. I mean, the look and feel is pretty interesting, though. It did use an interesting font for this. And I mean, the look is chill, whatever. We're not going to really rank that too hard anyways. But you see what I mean, right? Like, it doesn't have all these different moving parts that make it interesting for people who are trying to build applications. This is really just like a straight up agent that you talk to and try to build things with. And so I prefer like Codex any day of the week over Cursor. Like, I just find Codex will be better. And in any case, Cursor is using GPT 5.4 anyway. So it's almost like, why would you want to pay for Cursor when you can just use Codex and pay for use Codex with your ChatGPT subscription? So I personally already pay for ChatGPT. So why would I want to pay for Cursor? It doesn't make any sense. All right, so it is time to rank Cursor, and I think it gets a super fair A tier for obvious reasons. Now that I think about it, I did know I was going to make a few changes throughout the video, but opening my brain to all these other tools and making decisions, I think Codex deserves to be in that S tier list. Not only does it do the same thing as Cursor, but it is using a model that you're already paying for. Like, you're probably already paying for ChatGPT in the first place, so you might as well just plug it into Codex. And Codex has just been a phenomenal experience for me. So I do think like if you're not using a tool like Orchids, like Codex is probably the next best thing. And I've even seen a lot of my friends just use Codex recently, and they've been building really cool things. So I think I'm going to move Codex up to S tier. And I do want to preface that I'm not giving a worse score to Cursor because they're not able to publish or you're not able to natively manage a database. It's because Cursor is meant for more experienced users. It's not really meant for those beginner users. So as far as like an experienced user goes, Cursor and Codex are like great options. But however, I do think that there does lack a sort of middle ground where a beginner user has certain expectations of what they want when building their first application and their first website. And it's interesting to see how this list is panning out because Replit is like really in the middle here. They're not the worst tool. They're also not even close to being the best tool, but they're also good for, beginner users. And then, I mean, they're not really great for experienced users, but like they support beginner users and they're also like, they're not bad, but they're also not great. So it is interesting to see how accurate this like list is sort of shaping up to be. But yeah. All right, so now it's time to rank the last one on the list, V0. And you've probably heard of V0. What's funny is that when V0 and Cursor kind of came out, I almost thought they were like the same thing. Don't ask me why. I just thought they were like the same product for some reason because the branding was like so similar at the time, like not from like a logo perspective, but just like the colors. And like when I was a beginner to this space, I don't know why I thought it was the same company. But let me know down below as well, like if you thought the same. But I doubt it, to be honest. This is the last video you'll ever have to watch before you make a decision on which vibe coding tool you should be using. V0 was obviously made by Vercel, so they're going to have a lot of interesting things about them that make them pretty decent as far as a tool goes. Not only can you publish it straight to Vercel as well, because it's obviously made by Vercel, they do have a few other interesting features. You're not locked into like a database or like hosting with them. Vercel is a front-end platform at the end of the day, so it makes sense for them not to lock you into any database provider. Obviously, you can't bring your own keys or your own subscriptions. But a good thing is that you're not locked into like any of these services. Like you're not forced to use Supabase. You're not forced to integrate with Stripe. So there are a few things there that allow the user to like make these decisions. But V0 doesn't have support for like mobile apps. And so you can't really create that many apps with them. And so when you compare it to like a Cursor or like a Codex that can kind of build anything, it doesn't really pan up as nicely as like these other ones. All right, so obviously, wait, what? This is not working. Oh no. It failed at making a basic tier list. Oh gosh. Oh, why is it working now all of a sudden? Wait, what? Wait, it only works on B tier? Oh gosh. That's not good. No, that's not good. Yeah, that is not good. It only works on B. But now it works on D all of a sudden. How come? Wait, what? Okay, but the tier list thing is besides the point anyway. I'm able to collaborate. I can publish in a single click, push to production. So that's chill. Obviously, it's using Vercel. They're not going to let you host anywhere. So like one thing here is that like I can't even publish this to another hosting provider because like Vercel is obviously going to like force you to use their tool. So I do think that there are a few restrictions. Obviously, the pricing is also super fair, just like everybody. Everybody starts at 20 to 25 bucks a month. So I guess it's the price of like an expensive takeout meal is what you'll pay for one of these like vibe coding tools. Also, like I do feel like V0 has just been plummeting in terms of popularity. Like nobody's really been using V0 too much recently. You can also like view your code here, but it is not like a native VS Code sort of thing. Whereas with Orchids, by the way, before you're able to like view your code in like a fully like native VS Code environment. So here with Orchids, I could literally like look at my code from a native VS Code perspective. And if you're like more of a serious developer, you'll understand what I mean by that. Whereas a lot of like these other tools just kind of like they will take your code and they'll put like their own kind of skin on it, and it won't feel like, it'll be like everybody's making their own sort of IDE in a way. It is interesting how V0 is like the only other tool in the market where you can one-click publish to Vercel other than Orchids as well. Like there's no other tools in the market that allow you to do that other than Orchids. So Orchids is like one thing I will say is that it does sort of take every single like the good parts of every single tool on the market and it kind of puts them together. V0 is going to go to B tier for me. I don't think it's as versatile and as good as Cursor in general. It also forces you to host with Vercel. And although I do love Vercel, I still think at the end of the day, a good vibe coding tool should not force you to do anything, period. So yeah, guys, this is my list. I would love for people to challenge me on this. And there's obviously quite a few products that I left out on this list. And the obvious one that you're gonna, basically call out is Claude and Claude Code. So you'll be like, why didn't you put this on a list? I just think that it is such a popular coding tool. And this is like one of those things where you can basically access Claude Code through Orchids as well. And so that's why I don't necessarily see like Claude Code as a vibe coding tool. It is really more so of an LLM. And even then, when you look up Claude Code on Google, like you can't even like enter an IDE like coding environment where I can just start prompting and building something. It is really like a different way of coding. But I will say that Claude Code is still considered vibe coding. However, it is not like a vibe coding platform, if that makes sense. All right, that wraps up this video. I know it was a long video. If you did stick around this long, thank you for watching. I really, really appreciate it. This was a fun video to make. And obviously, I'm going to be making more videos and showcasing what is possible with vibe coding. I do believe that anybody can build their ideas in 2026. And if you have a great idea, I challenge you to just start building it. There's nothing wrong that can happen from putting your ideas on paper and just trying something. So pick up one of these tools, try it for yourself. And yeah, without further ado, I will catch you in the next video. See ya.